Let me just start by saying, I have no f***ing idea what I'm doing. My name is Ryan. I am a teacher, instructional coach. I coach a few different sports, mentor people in my building. I have this podcast called Classroom Brew. And from the get-go, I just want to state that I am not an expert whatsoever. The point of this video, it's mostly going to be me pointing it out to you because I'm not an expert. I'm just going to refer to some things. I've talked to some other people to get to the root of this problem. During the first few weeks of the pandemic, it seemed like everyone was on the teacher's side and calling us heroes, and all of us kind of knew, like, that's going to be short-lived. And sure enough, it definitely was. Fast forward to today, and we have all these different hateful comments. I can't complain too much because with all that hate and all those stupid comments, I at least have a podcast segment to look at. Welcome to the Comment Hero of the Week. When someone's being an in the comment section, but they have no idea what the they're talking about.
What's going on is you failed social studies.
Or when you see someone call that person out, they are our Comment Hero of the Week. Yeah! Even though some heroes do call out those idiots, remember, don't call out a comment hero in the comment section. You can't fix them, and you can't fix stupid. So there's a lot that I stood to gain. Let's not lie about that. Unfortunately, there has been a teacher strike in my tenure during that time. And sure enough, when we were picketing, trying to fight for the different things that weren't just related to teachers, but also like what our kids should be getting and advocating for them, we had people driving by saying, "F you, teachers, get back to work, you stuff like that." And the same thing seems to be happening when it comes to reopening. Now, whether or not you agree that schools should be open right now, or if everyone should be vaccinated, or how you do it and the different policies, that's a whole nother story. But it seems like things are being rushed, mostly because people are a little bit impatient. They didn't think it would go on this long. They're sick of their kids. And so what's happened is now teachers are being called lazy yet again, claiming that we're not working, even though we're working from home. Political scapegoating. Let me reassure you, we don't want to do this from home either. It's easier for us to teach in our classroom with our kids there. We can monitor whether or not they're on their PS5. F you for buying them that and not taking it out of their room during the school day. So again, we knew it would be short-lived with this whole let's appreciate teachers. But I guess the turnaround from calling us lazy and greedy and overpaid and incompetent, it's a little bit old. Especially considering the average education level for a teacher is a master's degree, a PhD, average student debt about $50,000. Yet the average salary for a teacher, you can see it depends on the state, but New York, which is all the way up to $85,000, but of course they have the highest cost of living, Montana at $54,000, and you even have some states that we're talking like in the mid-40s, when everybody else with that same level of education, you're talking at least $75,000. And you might be thinking, well, they're only working 10 months out of the year. But even still, if you do the math, it's not evening out. It's not working out. Teach Mr. Reed, aka Dwayne Reed, who's also from Chicago, even put out this message saying, y'all are going to keep pressuring teachers until there are no more teachers left. All this work, not trusting them as experts, such little pay, it's coming. And sure enough, more and more people are leaving the profession. So I've been trying to get to the root of this issue. Like, why is it that everyone seems to hate teachers? Why are we so anti-teacher in the States? What the is going on? But I'm not the expert. I'm never going to claim to be the expert on this idea. So I actually asked a bunch of people I work with, people I know, random people, to kind of get to the heart of what they thought it was all about.
We're put in this one big pot of teachers, just like any other group of beings. Anything that's not desirable, if it stands out and it's ugly, then the rest of us have to pay for it.
Personally, I believe that so many people are anti-teacher because there's so many teachers out there who continue to be okay with the poor but happy narrative. We need to be more actively discussing the type of life that we live outside of our classroom. Understand that we enjoy it. That's great, but it's a very difficult life. The general public just can't even comprehend it.
Because they're not the robot that we want them to be in a society that values the individual and capitalism over all else.
There's times when education has not proven to be the best for students. And because of that, it falls on the teachers, and it even falls on the teachers who are working hard and really strive to do the best for their students.
Education has changed over time because the interests and needs of the world change, and education serves that. The more distance between your own educational experience and what's happening in classrooms today, the less familiar things are going to look. This lack of familiarity can sometimes manifest as a belief that present practices are inadequate. And I think that this might be one of the factors leading people to believe that present-day educators are somehow less than.
There's no way that there'll be a system for students to ever learn on an equitable level to where you'll have children learning on the same level of curriculum, being taught by the same type of energy from the same type of people.
People on school boards who are business people in the community get to make decisions on what teachers put in their curriculum, can tell a teacher, you're not teaching this book. And so I think the answer just sits there. Teachers are robots in this country, and they're not functioning at the way that people want them to function. So we get pissed off at them and blame them for the woes of whatever is going on in our educational system.
Because they don't give a about none of our kids. Have you seen our schools? It's like 50 kids to a school. They about to close every last one of them down. We all got to pile our kids up in one little building, and they don't teach them. You know what I'm saying? We just put our kids in one building so they could babysit them while we at work. You know, and that's for those of us who do work, because the other ones is somewhere outside wasting time, and then they ain't helping their kids learn nothing when they get home anyway. Them teachers ain't teaching them nothing on purpose, because there's some parents who really care. And we can't get involved with our kids because the teachers don't think that all of us want to be involved, because there's some of us who aren't involved. We ain't all one person. There's no way to regulate the teachers who are the good and the bad and wean out the bad ones.
I think America tends to be more anti-teacher for a couple reasons, largely because of how it started. One being like it was mostly like women, and still continues to be women, who are the bulk of the teachers. So like if a woman can do it, it must be easy. And if it's an easier job, then it should be underpaid.
If a woman's place is only in the house, apparently, well, then they can't be trusted to make their own policies in their classroom because it's not the house. And that goes for all teachers, I guess.
The system hasn't changed. It doesn't seem like the system will ever change. As a matter of fact, it seems like the educational system is getting worse.
We have tried to automate teaching, and in doing that, stripped it of its individualism and creativity. And then our society gets pissed off when you try to hold everyone to the same standard and say you're not reaching success.
Especially as far as educational equity. It shouldn't even be considered educational equity. It's the educational inequities.
America has this lovely ideal of the harder you work, the more you'll get paid. So if you're being paid less, it must be an easy job, and vice versa. If it's viewed as an easy job, they're going to be paid less. So essentially, teachers should just shut up and do their jobs and stop complaining because it's easy, quote unquote.
We're an incredibly diverse country, and none of that is honored or valued in our educational system. We create policies, make laws that govern what teachers can teach and how they can teach it. People with no educational background make these decisions. So if that's what's happening at the highest level, why would people value the person that has invested their educational pathway to become a teacher?
There's no way to regulate the teachers who are the good and the bad and wean out the bad ones. I hate to sound so general, but if I was to try to be specific, then my biases would come out, and I ain't about to do that. You know, and with this pandemic going and everything like that, you know, they not even required to log in. It's like they making excuses for them to be okay with not logging in.
Oh, and God help you if you're trying to have a good time. Like maybe you have a podcast where you get to poke fun and try to let off a little bit of steam. Can't have any humor if you're a teacher while these kids are going through this. There's not much that you can say to someone that truly doesn't know what's going on, the effort that you're going through. And sure, there are definitely bad teachers out there, but the generalization that you heard in some of those audio clips, that's for sure the big bad wolf in all of this. Do you know how many times I've heard a parent suggest what a teacher should be doing? We all think we're the expert, because we've all been a student before. You don't see me going up to Anthony Rizzo or Mike Trout, though, and saying, hey, man, I really think on those inside fastballs you ought to, because I was in Little League. So I went a step further. I even took it to Instagram, and I asked people, why do you think American society is so anti-teacher? Jealous of our snow days and winter breaks? You know we're not paid for winter break and summer break and Thanksgiving break, right? You can't be that ignorant, right? Not realizing how much harder we work or we have another job outside of that? Illiteracy? Some sort of vendetta against a former teacher of their own? Are all these parents learning it because of their revenge that we're talking about? They had a bad someone asked them to read in front of the class and they got embarrassed, so they indoctrinated their own kid to hate teachers? Or is there someone else influencing these parents and ultimately kids? MAGA, assuming that it's easier online. Someone else to blame for a lack or excess of parenting. Whether it's an insecurity or it's just being tired of it all, kind of like how everyone's sick of wearing their masks, so they decided, it's over, right? Or just jealousy, or maybe even political rhetoric. Chris Christie has been a very anti-teacher person.
During your first term as governor, you were fond of saying that you can treat bullies in one of two ways. Quote, you can either sidle up to them or you can punch them in the face. You said, I like to punch them in the face. At the national level, who deserves a punch in the face?
Oh, the National Teachers Union.
Why?
Because they're not for education for our children. They're for greater membership, greater benefits, greater pay for their members. They are the single most destructive force in public education in America.
The single greatest danger to our American education system is actually Chris Christie's FUPA. But it goes back to the issue of teachers are trying to advocate for better pay and better conditions, and so, we must be undermining education, and we're not in it for the right reasons. We're not doing it for the love of the game. So I decided to take to Reddit, and I'm afraid of Reddit. And people on Reddit went to town talking about undervaluing of teachers based on rushing to open schools during the pandemic. They also harped on some of the issues that were mentioned on Instagram or from the audio clips. Someone even pointed out, if we're such horrible people, why do you want to send your kid back to us in the first place? Political scapegoating. Now, granted, Reddit, not the greatest one, right? But there's also this long withstanding history of inherent misogyny from a typically or historically female profession. Why would you pay a woman more? Because that's typically how the U.S. pays women. So naturally, teaching is mostly for women, those who cannot teach, and therefore paying them less. It's a glass ceiling, if you will, rooted in a long withstanding history of misogyny in the U.S. Now, there's also the issue of autonomy, and it's part of the reason why a lot of people are leaving the profession is because back when I was a student, if I did something wrong, my parents would probably side with the teacher, the adult, and there'd be some sort of a consequence. Now, the exact opposite. Some kid does something wrong, the teacher's to blame. But myself as a male teacher, I don't get it nearly as hard as my female colleagues do. Again, misogyny in the U.S. Aren't you glad the straight white male is the one telling you this all right now? We can't even decide. Let's not forget the fact that we can't even decide these major issues. Everything from what we can teach on a daily basis to what's banned or allowed in school, things we can say, but also the issue of reopening, which we are the main front line, the ones that are getting bloodied through the wall over the lack of schools opening fast enough, as if we had a choice. And on top of that, let's go with this idea of political rhetoric. Donald Trump Jr., for example, calling us loser teachers and saying that we're indoctrinating people.
Keep up that fight. Bring it to your schools. You don't have to be indoctrinated by these loser teachers that are trying to sell you on socialism from birth. You don't have to do it.
So lumping us into one big category and putting out this rhetoric that it's okay to disrespect and call out and generalize on teachers. Why is it that it seems like more teachers are liberal? According to Pacific Research, for the most part, teaching and education is designed to liberate, to free from oppressive forces. So while not all teachers are going to be a liberal Democrat, whatever you want to say, there is inherently in education this idea of lifting the voices of others, the unspoken, the ones that haven't been given a voice, the non-mainstream, if you will. Conversely, on the other side of the spectrum, teaching to the right or you're not going with these more liberal ideas, you're kind of if you do, if you don't. Not to mention, sometimes there's required curriculum that we don't even have a say on, but we have to do it anyway. And it was written by someone that wasn't even a teacher. So what does all this mean? What's the whole point of this? There's plenty of different reports like Learning Policy Institute. They have a great article, and you might not want to read the whole thing, but I did. And it basically broke down the different reasons why teachers are leaving the profession. And most of the time, it's not because of the kids being dissatisfied with assessments and different types of accountability measures. I wonder if standardized testing was just made because of some sort of political position or some sort of business decision that went wrong because someone has somebody and it maybe it's nepotism and that's why we do standardized testing because someone knew the PSAT people and the SAT people and the College Board people and then somebody found out so they can't back down on it and say that it's really important. It's a big indicator for college success and preparedness, and then it really just becomes this big issue where it's like, well, we know it doesn't do anything. It's like, well, we know, and most colleges don't care about it, but we're going to do it anyways. Could it be because of that? Dissatisfaction with administration, school policies, or school issues that are never quite addressed. Although I guess they do fix things in the schools they care about, the students they care about. Autonomy in the classroom, their own classroom. Maybe we are supposed to be robots. I had a student once that thought that teachers lived in the school and that their classroom was their bedroom. Maybe it is in some countries. Maybe like Sweden or something where they're doing really well. That would probably solve the issue of affordable housing with the low teacher salaries. I bet Sweden pays their teachers better, though. Still. And of course, too many interruptions or intrusions on the thing they signed up for as a career in the first place. Teaching their students. If you just look it up somewhere, you go teacher versus, there's even an article from waterford.org that talks about preventing teacher burnout. But like in the suggested videos at the end of the article, it's something like, so-and-so destroys feminist teacher. As if it's something that's clickbait, like can't wait for this motherfucker to get something in the chest. So why does it all matter? This misogyny, we have the people that are making decisions aren't actually teachers themselves. Enter Betsy DeVos and many, many other people that have been on school boards and part of different policy-making things. And of course, by the way, COVID is going to have a big impact. We know it's hard. We know that kids are going to likely lose progress. But there were achievement gaps well before COVID. So is it really about these students' achievement, or is this more of just a political posturing issue? Let's not forget, too, that we were told for years that we can't fund certain technologies that would help students, but now that they were forced to do this remotely, well, suddenly every kid has 2 Chromebooks, one that they got and a backup one if that one breaks, no questions asked. And it's weird because theoretically, districts and school boards and things like that would hopefully have at least a few former teachers. But it seems like once you become a cog in the machine, it doesn't really matter anymore. There's a system, even of former teachers, where it's perpetuating an anti-teacher society. And you expect the people that are good in this profession to want to stay? And if you noticed, I'm not giving you answers. I'm just kind of pointing out the possibilities, posing further questions. And please, for the love of God, just recognize that we as teachers, trust me, we're tired of this too. We want to go back too. This certainly isn't easier, regardless of what someone's going to say in the news or what some student that never attends is going to say or what some parent believes based on what they're seeing. A lot of times those comments are coming out of ignorance. Is the commute great? Oh yeah, but we're spending a lot more time doing our planning and working with our kids and trying to modify things. It's a lot harder. So if you're trying to figure out the question that I posed in my own video, of why it seems like we're anti-teacher in American society, and you want to know what my opinion is,